that evolved into, you know what, all this feedback, all this content that I kept putting out, which I was so scared to do because I didn't want to be judged.
Welcome back to For Entrepreneurs by Entrepreneurs. I'm Eric Verdi. Episode 4 this week is Tim Murphy. He's an entrepreneur extraordinaire. He has his hands in a little bit of everything. We're going to take the evolution of Murph from real estate agent to developer to builder into his latest program, Digital Legend, where he really hits on video content. He teaches you. He has a program to teach you how to put out video content. He had his own Ask Murph show that was a huge hit. So Murph, I appreciate you joining us on For Entrepreneurs by Entrepreneurs today, man. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, buddy. It's always a pleasure to get in contact with you and talk business, entrepreneurship, and life.
All right, Murph. So give our listeners and viewers your backstory and exactly what business are you in?
Well, what business I am in is entrepreneurship. I mean, because I have my hands in a lot of different things, but my backstory starts, probably all the way back when I was an athlete, and sports was just, I was in multiple different sports. I was a 3-sport athlete in high school, blah, 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 blah. But really what I learned from sports was just my drive and my passion. And I think I really realized that I had some leadership skills. And I also realized that I had a drive that, now as I'm getting older, I've realized that, I have a drive that probably a lot of people don't have. And that's what's given me the success, I believe, in being an entrepreneur and running multiple different businesses.
So I would hearken on sports. Like that is, I think, the number one thing growing up as kids and in high school and college, if you're fortunate enough and good enough to play in college, but definitely growing up, like sports leads to so many more things in life. One, unless you're playing golf or tennis, it leads to teamwork. Okay. And where do you fit in on the hierarchy of team? And are you all pulling in that same direction? I've been on teams and I know you have where you might not have the best talent, but there's just that chemistry, man. And everybody knows their role. And that's much like the entrepreneurial world. You and I talk very often, about different people on our team and how do they fit in or not fit in and what direction are we going. And so I think that is hugely important to be an entrepreneur. You have to know your role, and you also have to be able to take leadership and or follow directions when you have somebody else that does take that leadership mantle from you, because we're not always there leading the way, right?
Well, and I think a team dynamic, whether it's sports or business, it comes down to there's leaders, but there isn't just one leader. Everybody plays their role. Like I was a hockey player, right? So there was the goal scorer. Well, he's our leader when it comes to, hey, we need a goal. There was the checker, who would go out and throw his body around and try to stir up, havoc with the other team. There was our goaltender, who he's the only one that can stop the puck. And then there's a defenseman who is out there and he's trying to defend everybody and protect his goalie. So everybody's a leader in their position, but yet, we all have to do it together, and that is business at its core.
Right. And I think, so I'm going to go off course here a little bit. So Anthony's 13 years old, playing on a soccer team. We're not allowed to play right now because of the COVID-19, whatever. So we're doing Zoom calls twice a week with the team. The coach, I'm the assistant coach. The coach last week during the call had every player go through and say what position they're best in, and then what position on the field do they think is the hardest. And it was pretty much across the board. Like the defenders thought the offensive guys in the midfield was the hardest, and the midfield and the offensive guys thought the defenders were the hardest. So they knew that they lean on each other because they know, hey, I'm good in my position, but I know what's going on back there. I know what's going on up there is pretty hard.
100% agree. And that's when you have a good team, when they respect everybody else's position.
Exactly. All right, Murph. So what is it that led you on your journey? And more importantly, like, what's your superpower, man?
Well, at the end of the day, what's your superpower is kind of like, what's your why, right? Like what defines you? And I think that's something that evolves. It's not something that you can really just put your finger on right away, especially when you're younger. As you get older, I believe that you can become more aware, especially if you're more self-aware. And as you become more self-aware, I think you can start defining, your why or what your superpower is. And I would say my superpower truly is relationships. And it took me a lot of pain to come to that conclusion. I always knew I was good at people. I always knew that I was good at bonding and finding my people, because we're not all suited to be friends or to be business partners or to be connected with everyone. But there's people that we're definitely meant to connect with. And I think you and I are a good example of that. And so relationships are super important to me. And, I've defined my why real simple, is that my goal and my belief is that I'm put on this earth to help other people create their best self. And what do I mean by that? That's really, it depends what business I'm working on or what situation I'm in, but it can be a situation that's in any course of my life, that as long as I realize that my why, the purpose that I'm on this earth for, is to help other people create their best self or reach their full potential, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And ever since I figured that out, it's like everything just falls into place.
Was there a breakthrough or a pivotal moment that got you to this helping others point?
Yeah, I don't, it's life in general, right? Like all this pain in life, it brings you this point. But my story. It's I have a daughter who has type 1 diabetes, and she literally, it was so black and white. It was one day she didn't have type 1 diabetes. Now she was sick up to this point, and then the next day she had type 1 diabetes. And I'll never forget the call. My wife frantically called me and said, you need to come home. You need to come home. I'm out snowmobiling in the middle of nowhere, like 5-6 hours away. And my wife leaves this message, and she couldn't even finish it, and was completely in tears and hung up the phone. And I was like, I pick up my phone, listen to the voicemail, and I'm freaking out, right? Well, long story short is, I'd end up in the hospital, and my daughter's in this bed, sick. She had, her health was, she could have almost died. I mean, it was really, really scary. And I found myself pacing back and forth. And I realized, like, the doctor came up to me and he said, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm okay. And he goes, well, how are you going to handle this? And I said, you know what, Doc, I think this happened for a reason. And at that moment, I realized that right there was like, I was defined as, you know what, Tim, you were given diabetes as a challenge. And in that moment, you are either going to run away from the challenge or you're going to run into it head first. And I would say Tim Murphy usually runs into the fire instead of runs away from the fire. And I think at that moment, I realized, like, I need to get past Tim Murphy and I need to start telling my story. And as I started telling my story, that evolved into, you know what, all this feedback, all this content that I kept putting out, which I was so scared to do because I didn't want to be judged. And it wasn't necessarily that I was insecure with myself, but it was more that I didn't want people to look at me and think, you're arrogant because you put out all this content. And that, oh, who are you to put out all this content? And again, that's all self-talk. And that's where I am today. It's all about helping other people create that self-image worth fighting for, or reaching their full potential. And it all starts for me. It all started for me with telling my story. And that all started with my daughter and the struggle that we have with type 1 diabetes.
And I know you do a great job helping raise money for type 1 diabetes. We're probably not going to get into that this call. They can go back to our former podcast and listen to that. But Murph he puts his money and his energy, more importantly, where his mouth is. He does, give back and in the community and with juvenile type 1 diabetes a lot. So I want to go down a different path here or kind of diverge. We're both in the relationship business, right? We're both really good at relationships. We're both good at one-to-many communication. Mine more written word. You are awesome in video. So let's go down that path. Let's talk about Digital Legend. Let's talk about video and how that's kind of evolved and how you are integrating video into your business and now helping others integrate video into their business.
Right. So as I went down this content creation and sharing my message journey, I wanted to figure out and explore it, but I didn't know exactly how I wanted to explore it. So what I did was I launched this podcast called EdinaAdviceGivers.com. And so I launched this podcast, and the only reason I launched this podcast is because how do I get involved in content, or how do I learn more about content and messaging and trying to inspire people, really? I have to be doing. And so I'm a doer. I'm not a researcher. I'm not a fidgeter. I'm a doer. Like if I want something, I go after it and I do it and I fall on my face and I skin my knee and I learn from the pain and problem solutions, right? So I started this podcast, and in this podcast, I was like, okay, I can do a podcast that's just audio. That's what a podcast is, right? But how do I make it an experience? How do I really make people feel the stories from the people that I want to interview? And so what I did was I added video to my podcast. So now I had a podcast, but I also had video. So we had a full production go out day one, my first podcast. And everybody was like, you're nuts. Like, number one, the expense of it. Number two, the production of it, as far as coordinating everything and da-da-da-da-da. Well, thankfully, I have support because I have other businesses, so they helped me execute on this. But what I found was doing this podcast, and I did over 60 episodes, the video was what I gravitated to because I'm a very empathetic person. Like I like to see the emotions. I like to see their faces. I like to see tears. I like to see smiles. I like to, when I hear that voice inflection, I want to see it on their face. And so I'm a very empathetic person. So the video, I was like, every time I saw the videos of these interviews, I love the audio part, but I thrived on the video because I just think you get so much more out of it. And that's really when I started moving forward on this journey of Digital Legend and what is it all going to be about, and why I started the Ask Murph show, where it really is simple. It's problem solution. What am I really good at? Well, at the time I was really good at real estate, and I still do real estate. So I said, okay, people are going to have problems all day, every day in real estate. Well, what are the solutions that I have for them? And let's shoot a video on it.
And then you did that for a few years, and you told me stories of people coming to you and just saying, hey, Murph, we trust you. We trust you because they've seen the videos. You didn't even know these people, right? And that's just by putting that content creation out there, yours in video form, there was a like-mindedness that you're the expert and they trust you.
Well, at the end of the day, you and I both know this better than probably a lot of people, but it comes down to, are you going to do one-to-one communication, which is, hey, I'm going to go to lunch. And this is what my broker, who's been in the business for 35 years, this is what he trains people. And I don't blame him because this is what he knows. But are you going to go to lunch with one person or three people every single day? Are you going to go to events where you can network and have a couple handshakes and a couple conversations? Or are you going to get on social media and leverage video, which me and you right now, we're having a one-to-one conversation, except we're using digital technology to leverage this one-to-one conversation so we can share it with many different people, right? And so I looked at it and I said, man, why am I focused on one-to-one when I can focus on one-to-many? And if I use video and I'm willing to get through my judgment and allow people to see me on camera, everybody knows how everybody feels about being on a camera, and get over that, then I'm able to communicate with many different people instead of just one person in a single day on a single post for a single subject. And that's what Ask Murph was all about. It was about how many questions am I really answering if I answer one question and 500 people see it.
Right. And so from your Ask Murph show, from your background with podcast and podcast production, you decided to help others. So let's share your screen now. Let's go through your Digital Legend course and then your 30-day challenge, and talk to our listeners, viewers, if you're listening to this on iTunes, on podcasts, wherever you are. If you go over to For Entrepreneurs by Entrepreneurs Facebook page, the video will be there and you can watch Murph actually walk through this. So go ahead, Murph. I'm going to let you rock and roll.
Yeah. So again, it comes down to how do you leverage video in its most simple form, right? And that's really what we're trying to do at Digital Legend, is take a simple concept, because creating content is super dynamic. And I can go into all the different ways, and that's what Digital Legend, our business, is all about, is how can you leverage one-to-many communication through digital media? Well, we didn't want to start with this huge, elaborate podcast like I had for edinaadvicegivers.com, because if we start there, people are going to get overwhelmed. So what we wanted to do is break this all the way down to its simplest form. And that's what this 30-day challenge is all about. It's about basically picking up your phone once a day, hitting a button, recording a message, which in the 30-day challenge, we give you topics. So you don't even have to think about it. It's kind of like having a trainer every single day have a workout for you where you don't even have to think about it. You just wake up, put your clothes on, do the workout, and say, I'm done, right? Well, that's exactly what this is. We have a format and a software where literally you press a button, you talk about the topic that's right on hand that we give you, and you press a button, and boom, you're done. I mean, literally, it's 5 minutes. And we wanted to make this as frictionless as possible because all it's really about, it's about just getting started with the habit of creating a video, of creating content on a daily basis. Because, Eric, if anybody knows, I mean, you're a master at creating content on a daily basis. And number one, what does that do? It allows your mind to think about all the different narratives that are around you, and you become aware of all these different narratives. Number two, it allows you to get good at being in front of the camera, starting from a headline and creating your way of putting videos together in the short form context. Once you put that together and you realize after 30 days, oh my gosh, this is really not that hard. Like, I press a button, I talk about something that I live and breathe and I'm passionate about. I press a button and it's done. That's it. And that's what this 30 days challenge is all about. In my video, I talk about, the why, we talk about the what, the how. And then Dave, who is my business partner, he is a 30-year radio DJ around the country. I mean, this guy has talked to anybody that's famous, he's talked to him. The other beauty that I love about Dave is that Dave has a wife who is a TV anchor at one of our biggest stations here in Minneapolis. Between the two of them, they've helped us format this 30-day challenge, but they've also helped us leverage content through our company, Digital Legend Media, by helping other people. So you can definitely come here. It's digitallegend.net, and you can get the scoop.
So digitallegend.net, and you can sign up for the 30-day challenge, and then somebody, either you or somebody from your office, will be in touch about getting them set up.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Murph. So final question here, I guess. Depends how long we go. So you're dropped off on an island, okay? Foreign country, whatever. And you want to start your business from scratch, whatever business it is. Like, what's day 1, day 2, day 3 look like?
Yeah. So if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm just going to start a business, number one is the biggest thing that I will do is find what am I passionate about? Because if you're going to start a business, you better have passion for it. Because I'm going to tell you, not every day is going to be a good day. So I would find something that I'm absolutely passionate about. And it's kind of like finding your wife. I've been married for 18 years. When I decided to marry my wife, we dated for 7 years. Now, there's a reason that we dated that long, because I knew that once I made that commitment to marry my wife, it was forever. And when you're going to start a business, you need to realize that you need to do the research. So day one is find your passion. Find your passion and what you're all about. And then from there, research it. And then find a model. And these can be maybe one day is this, the second day is that, the third day is this. Find a model. And then if you can find a mentor, someone that's already done what you want to do, that's probably the best first week you could have as an entrepreneur. And then as you're doing the research, these could be your first, 15 days is all about, is this the right thing for me? Because if you make the wrong decision and you go down this road and you put years and years, like Digital Legend, I have 4 or 5 years into this Digital Legend, creating from the day one when I launched this podcast all the way to today. But the reason that I am so passionate about it is because this is part of my why. This is part of my purpose, is if I can help people use social media to help their community, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. So that's why I'm committed for the long run with digital media, which is just like why I'm committed with my wife for the long run, forever. And if you're able to do that and you're able to prepare and research and then make that decision, boom. Now, once you've actually committed, call that day 25, the next 5 days and for the rest of your life, that's going to be your journey. And you have to look at running a business as a journey, because every day you're going to have pain and every day you're going to have to come up with a solution. And if you quit on that then your business will fall apart. And so you have to follow that journey, and you're going to learn things. One of the classic things, Verdi, you know this, is you got to pivot, right? Entrepreneurship, you hear a million times, well, you got to pivot, because you're going to run into a wall, like in a maze. You're that rat in the maze trying to find your way to the exit. And you're going to run into all these walls, and you have to turn around. And it's painful to run into the wall and turn around, because usually you're losing money. But it doesn't matter, because you have to keep walking. You have to find your way to the end. But in entrepreneurship, there really isn't an end. Until you die, you're going to keep building your business. So, I don't know if I necessarily gave you a 30-day, breakdown, but I definitely gave you a mindset to go into being an entrepreneur. And if you literally want 30 steps on how to do it, shoot me a message, because I'd love to give you 30 steps, but I'd love to give it in the context of what you really want to do, because I think that's just as important as having a mindset, because you have to set your mindset correct in the beginning. Otherwise, I think you're just going to get lost.
And I think what you said with day one is so key, Murph, and you and I, we've talked and interviewed, between the two of us, probably 400, 500 entrepreneurs, and those 10% that are still doing it and they're ultra successful. And ultra successful doesn't necessarily mean making a lot of money, but it means making an impact and being happy, are the ones that have a passion for what they do. It can be dipping ice cream. It can be making soda pops. It can be whatever it is. When you get in front of somebody and they have a passion for what they do every day, they will be successful.
It's contagious.
And it is. And you talked about pivoting, and that's why you're episode 4 on a new podcast, because like you, we did Advice Givers for so long. It ran its course. It was so good. But the listeners, the viewers were entrepreneurs. So I said, well, why don't I make a podcast for entrepreneurs? We had, myself, I did my 21 Days to Publish program. We had Brandon on here, and literally in 40 minutes, Brandon was able to help people get a podcast set up and running. We've got you talking about your video digital legend, where video is so important. If you're listening today as an entrepreneur and you want to integrate video content into your business, into your marketing, into your branding, reach out to Murph at digitallegend.net, and he will set you up. He will literally walk you through 30 days of getting content out there. Then you can decide, hey, I might not be good on video, or I might be really damn good on video like Murph is. So Murph, I appreciate you joining us today. So how would listeners, viewers, reach out to you, ask any questions besides digitallegend.net?
TimKMurphy.com. You go to Tim K. Murphy, that's where you're going to read all my stories. You're going to know where I came from, who I am, and you can find my Instagram, my Facebook, all that stuff. But I truly believe that if you are going to impact people, you have to start with sharing your own story. Go to timkmurphy.com, and you're going to start to be able to read about my story and what I'm all about.
And if anybody wanted to donate today to Shay's cause,
That'd be awesome.
What's that?
Yeah,
what's that website?
That's teamsugarshay.com. Teamsugarshay.com. And you're donating, just so you know, you're donating right to JDRF, which is Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, nonprofits for type 1 diabetes research. So nothing comes to me. I don't see it, touch it, anything. It goes right to this nonprofit, and it's teamsugarshay.com. And thank you very much, Verdi, for throwing that in.
Awesome. Listeners, viewers, I hope you enjoyed Tim Murphy, his digital legend platform format, and his story as much as I did. Episode 4 of 4 Entrepreneurs by Entrepreneurs, and we are out.